August 1996 is a very big day for young journalist Heidi Scheuerle. One of her articles appears in a major daily newspaper. It must be an incredible feeling for the 26-year-old to open the newspaper and see her own article in print. Readers across Germany can read Heidi's critique of a television program about real criminal cases. In her report, she offers criticism that is by no means unjustified. She notes how emotional the programs are, how women are often infantilized, and, above all, how much fear the content can stir up without viewers even realizing it. Heidi Scheuerle can be more than satisfied with her article. It is a linguistically pointed but factually sound commentary that definitely invites questioning. What Heidi Scheuerle does not know is that she will soon end up on the very program she criticizes in her article. Because Heidi Scheuerle will disappear. Heidi Scheuerle is 26 years old and studies at Lake Constance. At university, she takes courses in English and history. For Heidi, this is the ideal path to a career as a journalist. And she is well on her way. In the summer of 1996, she writes an article about a program on real criminal cases. In her article, Heidi accuses the format and the then presenter of scaremongering. Above all, Heidi finds it wrong that hitchhiking is often explicitly discouraged. She writes that it would be a shame if this fast, flexible, ecological, and cheap mode of transportation were no longer used. After all, something can happen anywhere and anytime. Given what will probably happen to her in the fall of that year, the article has a bitter aftertaste. Although Heidi studies in Germany, she lives in Switzerland. More precisely, in the small town of Kreuzlingen. In Switzerland, Heidi lives with 2 roommates. They share dinners, morning coffee, the whole program. But Heidi is not only a valued roommate and friend, she is also a committed, aspiring journalist. And after her article, she continues to be very successful. At the end of 1996, she lands a coveted internship at Swiss Radio. This looks great on the resume of an aspiring journalist, of course. Not only does she now have experience in print media, but she can also get a glimpse into the day-to-day business of television. The fact that the broadcaster is headquartered in Zurich is also a great fit. Heidi's boyfriend lives there. If she has to work late, she can simply stay with him after work and doesn't have to commute back home. On October 8, 1996, the young woman has a very exciting appointment, her first real assignment as a reporter. Heidi is supposed to shoot a short piece in a museum, only about 30 seconds long. But for intern Heidi, this is still a big deal, of course. Her employer offers to cover her travel expenses, but Heidi has a better idea. She wants to hitchhike again. For her, this mode of transportation means freedom and adventure, as the media will later report. Inevitably, you meet new people along the way, and since Heidi is always looking for exciting contacts for her work, this mode of transportation makes sense to her. The route is also quite suitable for hitchhiking. You can drive via Zurich towards Basel, and of course, many drivers travel in the direction of these 2 major cities, offering potential rides. So, on the morning of October 8th, Heidi quickly makes a cardboard sign at the breakfast table. This is to show passing cars that she wants to be taken to Zurich and then on to Basel. On this day, the first snow of the year falls. Perhaps that's why there is less traffic on the roads than usual. and perhaps many people who actually wanted to go in this direction didn't get into their cars that day because of the snow. But one person definitely did. Heidi Scheuerle's murderer. In the morning, Heidi leaves her shared apartment. She says goodbye to one of her roommates and announces that she wants to be back home in the evening. At least part of the way, Heidi gets a ride from a driver. He works for Swiss Air and is on his way to Zurich Airport that morning. According to the driver, the car ride is uneventful. He and Heidi have a good conversation, but at some point, their paths separate. He drops her off at a rest stop. From there, Heidi hopes to quickly find a ride to Basel. Around 1 p.m., a truck driver is taking his lunch break at this very rest stop. The young hitchhiker catches his eye. When cars drive by, she holds up a cardboard sign with her destination written on it. But when truck drivers drive by, she turns away. Apparently, she only wants to ride in cars. So the truck driver at the rest stop doesn't pay any further attention to her. At that time, it was still quite common for people to try to hitch a ride. The truck driver spends his break reading the newspaper and doesn't give it any further thought. A short time later, he notices that the young woman is gone. He doesn't see what kind of car she might have gotten into. Heidi Scheuerle does not return home that evening. Her roommates are not overly concerned at first. It's possible that Heidi went to the editorial office in Zurich after her research to deliver her findings, or is simply sleeping at her boyfriend's place. In 1996, not everyone is permanently reachable by smartphone. But on October 10th, 2 days after Heidi's departure, her roommate's concern is too great. They go to the police and report Heidi missing. A day later, her boyfriend in Zurich does the same because he can no longer reach the 26-year-old. Given the circumstances, the police take Heidi's disappearance very seriously right away. On October 12th, the police issue a public search warrant. At the television station where Heidi was working as an intern just a few days ago, they are now producing TV reports about her disappearance. The police are also pulling out all the stops. They search Heidi's room, but find no evidence of a planned disappearance. They also conduct interviews with Heidi's family, at her university, and in nearby hospitals. Even relevant criminals who were on temporary leave from prison on October 8th are checked. The same goes for all the people who made purchases at the rest stops along the route on the day of the incident, and can be traced thanks to credit card data. In total, the police question more than 300 people. None of them can provide any valuable clues as to the whereabouts of the 26-year-old. The truck driver remains the last witness who claims to have seen Heidi at the rest stop. The person she got into the car with afterwards never comes forward. This leads investigators to believe that the person she got into the car with is probably responsible for Heidi's disappearance. Despite the police's intensive efforts, the investigators are unable to make any further progress. At a certain point, unfortunately, all leads have been exhausted. In January 2000, 3.5 years have passed since Heidi's disappearance. It is decided to go on the program that she herself had criticized so harshly months before her disappearance. Her case is handled according to the same pattern that Heidi had criticized so harshly in her article. There is a film depiction of her internship at SRF, a reenactment of her last day, and many poignant words on the subject of hitchhiking. An investigator says openly in the studio that he assumes Heidi Scheuerle is no longer alive. It is October 28th, 2000. Heidi Scheuerle has been missing for over 4 years. A mushroom picker is walking through a wooded area about a 50-minute drive from the rest stop where Heidi was last seen. Instead of finding his dinner, he comes across a human skull. It lies about 15 to 20 meters from a hiking trail where walkers and cyclists pass by every day. Next to the skull, the police find other parts of a skeleton, though not all of them. This is often the sad reality when bodies are found in the forest. Animals carry off individual bones, making it almost impossible to recover all the remains. In addition to the bone fragments, remnants of clothing are also found. Forensic medicine estimates that the skeleton has only been there for 8 or 10 weeks. After 4 years, the connection to the Heidi Scheuerle case is not immediately made. It is entirely logical that the bones are first examined in connection with other, more recent cases, especially since DNA testing was not nearly as advanced at that time. That is why it takes another 2 years before it becomes clear that the dead woman found in the forest is Heidi Scheuerle. Thanks to a DNA match with her mother, the sad certainty is confirmed. Her body was found about an hour's drive from her destination at the time. At that time, the police also secured a fingernail at the site where she was found. This is an unusual but potentially valuable clue. Securing DNA from a fingernail is much easier than from other objects found at the scene. Nevertheless, the analysis yields no results. The police assume that there was a single perpetrator. They believe that an accomplice would have let something slip long ago. The circumstances of the discovery are, of course, puzzling. If the forensic medicine department's estimate is correct, and Heidi's skeleton was only deposited in the forest in July or August 2000, where was it for the almost 4 years in between? And why did the perpetrator decide to move Heidi's remains? We can only speculate about this. However, it is striking that the TV program about Heidi's disappearance was broadcast in January 2000. In the summer of the same year, the perpetrator appears to have disposed of her body in the forest. And what's more, in a forest that was definitely on her hitchhiking route. If the perpetrator had wanted to delay the discovery of the body even further, he could have chosen a different location. It almost seems as if it was intentional that she be found. Perhaps the perpetrator saw the TV program and felt guilty enough that he wanted to spare the relatives the question of whether Heidi could still be alive. Nevertheless, the perpetrator is never found, and the police are under increasing pressure, because in Switzerland, murder becomes statute barred after 30 years. And if you've been keeping track, you know what that means for the Heidi Scheuerle case. The statute of limitations on her murder expires this year. Perhaps the statute of limitations this year is also an opportunity in a way. That may sound strange, but a perpetrator would no longer have to fear any legal consequences. Perhaps that could motivate him to confess at some point, even if it's on his deathbed. Because the Swiss police have promised not to simply drop the case just because it has reached the statute of limitations, Heidi still has a family, friends, and colleagues who are still wondering who was responsible for her dying at the age of 26. And the investigators are determined to answer that question for her loved ones, even if the answer can no longer have any legal consequences. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Feel free to write your thoughts on the case in the comments. By doing so, you'll also be supporting the channel and ensuring that the video is recommended to people who haven't subscribed to Insolito yet. Otherwise, there's not much else to say. I wish you a good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're watching the video, and hope to see you again in the next video. Until then, ciao everyone.